There are, for me, a few holy grails of smartphone hardware. Things I would love to see in my perfect smartphone. Number 1, open source operating system, including drivers. Number 2, hardware kill switches for things like cameras and microphones and networking. And number 3, hardware components sourced from verifiable, ethical manufacturers and built, start to finish, in the USA. With that in mind, it would seem like the Librem Liberty smartphone from Purism would be the end-all, be-all for me, the perfect device. And at first glance, it checks all of those holy grail items. Hardware kill switches, made in the USA. The website even talks about their usage of the ethical supply chain. Huzzah! Unfortunately, due to some critical issues, I will not be purchasing one. I should point out that I have a long history with Purism, the company behind the Librem Liberty. Sometime back, I was their director of marketing, and prior to that was even the voice of their Librem 1 marketing campaign. I know these people. I know their dedication to free and open source software. I know how passionate they truly are about wanting to build the best privacy-respecting smartphone. All of this is my way of saying I should be the easiest person in the world to sell the Librem Liberty phone to. I am pre-built to want exactly what they are selling. In no small part because I thought that this phone would be a good idea when I worked there and pitched it to them. So why, oh why, will I not be buying one? To Purism's credit, they supply the following table of origin for some of the components of the Librem Liberty, which shows which country each part comes from. A few things to note right off the bat. Note that the chassis, the outer shell of the phone, is made in China, not in the USA. Number 2, the M.2 communication modules are replaceable with some various options. So the fact that some options are not made in the USA here is not terribly that big of an issue. Number 3, there are no key electronic components listed at all. That last one is the critical bit here. Note that no chips are listed. The CPU, the GPU, the memory, and the like are conspicuously absent from this list. So that begs the question, where do the various parts actually come from in this, quote, made in the USA phone? Well, the GPU, the Vivante GC7000 Lite, appears to be produced in Shanghai, China. The CPU, the NXP i.MX 8M quad-core Cortex A53, looks like it is fabricated in South Korea. The GPS module, the Tesio Live 3 GNSS, is produced by ST Microelectronics, which has manufacturing facilities in France, Italy, Malta, Singapore, Shenzhen, and other locations, but, and this is important here, not within the United States of America. Now, according to Purism, some chips are also fabricated in Taiwan and Japan, though which components those might be are unknown as there is not a detailed breakdown of each part used. China, Korea, Taiwan, Japan. Now, I'm not here to pass judgment on other countries, but to call the Librem Liberty a made-in-the-USA electronic is, in my opinion, more than a little misleading. The team at Purism clearly understands that people are likely to reach this conclusion as they make the following statement, quote, "Chip country of origin is not nearly as meaningful as country of board fabrication." End quote. I want to be clear here. That statement is utter and complete nonsense. Do we know everything that goes on within those chips? Of course not. Likewise, they are not actually made in the USA. This is my new made in the USA smartphone with parts made in Japan and Taiwan and China. Ridiculous. Some parts made in the USA? Are they? Are some of the parts in this phone made in the USA? Yes, some of them. And the final assembly, such as putting all the finished parts together, appears to be done within the USA, which is good, but not great. I believe that the team of Purism is trying very hard to produce a fully fledged made in the USA phone here. I do believe that. And this, quite simply, is probably the best that they could do, or perhaps the best they felt they needed to do. Which brings me to the price. If Purism had truly gone the extra mile and had sourced all components from the USA based in factories and fabricators on US soil, that could warrant a higher than normal price, without question. Is everyone on Earth willing to pay a higher price for the luxury of having a smartphone that is, quote, 100% made in the USA? No, of course not. Some people, perhaps most people, simply won't care all that much. You might not care. But for those that do care, this would be worth a heftier price tag. Unfortunately, this phone is not 100% made in the USA. It simply has a slightly higher percentage of the manufacturing done within the USA than some other phones. So what would you expect to pay for such a phone? Maybe a small markup? A slight markup? An extra couple $100 or something? How about $2,199 US dollars? That's right, over $2,000. That is a hefty chunk of change for a smartphone, especially one which has specifications significantly lower than that of many $200 Android phones. And at that price, that phone better darn well be 100% in the made of USA. But you know what? It's not. So should you get one? To be clear, I'm not saying this is a bad phone. Far from it. In fact, I think some of the design choices of the Librem line of phones is absolutely fantastic. I do. I always have. I believe that before I worked for the company. I believe that when I was the director of marketing, and I believe that today. And if you want a phone that is running Linux and has hardware kill switches, it's not a bad option. Especially if you are prepared to do a fair bit of tinkering, as the software stack still has quite a lot of maturing to do. That said, the Librem Liberty costs over 10 times the price of the Pine phone, which runs Linux, and it costs less than $200. Which is the only other true, and that's the only other true competitor in the, quote, pure Linux phone space. You could quite literally buy 10 Pine phones for the price of one Librem Liberty. Now granted, while the Librem Liberty may not be fully made in the USA, as they, in my opinion, are falsely proclaiming, the Pine phone is even less made in the USA. So there's that. All in all, the Librem Liberty is an interesting smartphone, one that I am glad exists, but until they can make a truly 100% made in the USA model, or significantly drop that price, I can't see myself picking one up. Now, this is an article that I wrote a week ago, 2 weeks ago, over on lunduke.locals.com. So if you were just now seeing it and listening to it for the first time, boy, are you missing out. Go to lunduke.locals.com, lunduke.locals.com, pick up a free account so you get notified when all these articles, I mean, if you're just seeing my stuff on YouTube or somewhere else, you are getting like a teeny bit of what I produce on the regular. You got to get over to lunduke.locals.com, get the free account over there so that you get notified whenever new stuff drops. And new stuff drops almost every day, sometimes multiple times a day. New podcasts, new articles, new videos, new comic strips, just fun little tidbits here and there, live chats, all sorts of stuff's going on all the time. So lunduke.locals.com. I should also say, in relation to this specific article, I have a lot more thoughts than this around Purism as a company, potential problems that Purism has had fulfilling some of these orders, issues that many people have had in dealing with Purism. There are a great many issues here. I no longer have any relationship of any kind with Purism as a company and generally kind of distance myself from them for many of those reasons. However, this is not the article where I go into those reasons. This is just me talking about the Librem Liberty. But occasionally, if you ever want to hear about more of those things, you can always ask over on lunduke.locals.com.